Anton Pavlovich Chekhov. The Bet. It was a dark autumnal night. An old banker was pacing to and fro in his study, remembering how, 15 years ago, in the autumn, he had given a party. Many clever people were there, and the conversation was fascinating. Among other things, they spoke of capital punishment. The guests, among whom were many scholars and journalists, for the most part disapproved of the death penalty. They found this form of punishment out of date, immoral, and unsuitable for Christian states. In the opinion of some, the death penalty ought to be replaced everywhere by life imprisonment. "I do not agree with you," said the host. "I have not tried either the death penalty or life imprisonment, but if one may judge a priori, then, in my opinion, the death penalty is more moral and more humane than imprisonment. An execution kills at once, but life imprisonment kills slowly. Which executioner is more humane? The one who kills you in a few minutes, or the one who drags the life out of you over the course of many years?" "Both are equally immoral," remarked one of the guests, "because they both have the same goal, the taking of life. The state is not God. It has no right to take away what it cannot give back, even if it wanted to." Among the guests was a lawyer, a young man of about 25. When asked his opinion, he said, "Both capital punishment and life imprisonment are equally immoral, but if I were offered the choice between execution and life in prison, I would certainly choose the second. To live somehow is better than not to live at all." A lively debate ensued. The banker, who was then younger and more excitable, suddenly lost his temper. He struck the table with his fist and shouted at the young lawyer, "It is not true. I bet you 2 million that you would not last 5 years in solitary confinement." "If you are serious," the lawyer replied, "then I bet I will stay not 5, but 15 years. 15? Done," cried the banker. "Gentlemen, I stake 2 million. "Agreed. You stake your millions, and I stake my freedom," said the lawyer. And so this wild, senseless bet was made. The banker, who at that time had more millions than he could count, spoiled and flighty, was delighted by the wager. During supper, he teased the lawyer, saying, "Come to your senses, young man, before it is too late. To me, 2 million is a trifle, but you risk losing 3 or 4 of the best years of your life. I say 3 or 4 because you will not stay longer. Do not forget, you unhappy man, that voluntary confinement is much harder than that which is forced. The thought that at any minute you have the right to step out into freedom will poison your whole existence in that cell. I pity you." And now the banker, pacing from corner to corner, recalled all of this and asked himself, what was the point of this bet? What is the use of this lawyer losing 15 years of his life, and me throwing away 2 million? Can it prove to people that capital punishment is worse or better than life imprisonment? No, and again, no. It is all nonsense and absurdity. On my part, it was the whim of a pampered man, and on the lawyer's part, it was nothing but greed for money. Then he remembered what had happened after that evening. It was decided that the lawyer would serve his confinement under the strictest supervision in one of the lodges built in the banker's garden. It was agreed that for 15 years he would be deprived of the right to cross the threshold of a lodge, to see living people, to hear human voices, or to receive letters in newspapers. He was allowed to have a musical instrument, to read books, to write letters, to drink wine, and to smoke tobacco. According to the agreement, his only communication with the outside world was to be in silence, through a small window specially made for the purpose. Anything he needed, books, sheet music, wine, and so on, He could receive in any quantity by sending a written note, but only through that window. The contract detailed every minor point that made the confinement strictly solitary, and it bound the lawyer to stay for exactly 15 years, beginning from 12 o'clock on November 14th, 1870, and ending at 12 o'clock on November 14th, 1885. The slightest attempt on the lawyer's part to break the conditions, even 2 minutes before the time, released the banker from the obligation to pay him the $2 million. In the first year of confinement, as far as could be judged from his brief notes, the lawyer suffered severely from loneliness and boredom. From his lodge, the sound of the piano could be heard constantly, day and night. He refused wine and tobacco. Wine, he wrote, excites desires, and desires are the first enemies of a prisoner. Besides, nothing is more tedious than drinking good wine and seeing no one. And tobacco, he said, spoiled the air in his room. In the first year, the books sent to him were mainly of a light character. Novels with complex love plots, crime and fantasy stories, comedies, and the like. In the second year, the music in the lodge fell silent, and in his notes, the lawyer demanded only the classics. In the fifth year, music was heard again, and the prisoner asked for wine. Those who watched him through the window said that all that year he did nothing but eat, drink, and lie on his bed. He yawned often and talked angrily to himself. He read no books. Sometimes at night he would sit down to write. He would write for a long time and then, toward morning, tear everything he had written into pieces. More than once he was heard to weep. In the second half of the sixth year, the prisoner zealously began the study of languages, philosophy, and history. He threw himself into these subjects so hungrily that the banker could hardly keep up with ordering books for him. In the course of 4 years, about 600 volumes were procured at his request. During this period of fascination, the banker received a letter from his prisoner which read, "My dear jailer, I write these lines to you in 6 languages. Show them to people who know. Let them read them. If they do not find a single error, I implore you, have a shot fired in the garden. That shot will tell me that my efforts have not been in vain. The geniuses of all ages and countries speak in different languages, but the same flame burns in them all. Oh, if you only knew what unearthly happiness my soul feels now that I am able to understand them." The prisoner's wish was granted. The banker ordered 2 shots to be fired in the garden. Then, after the 10th year, the lawyer sat motionless at the table and read nothing but the gospel. It seemed strange to the banker that a man who had mastered 600 profound volumes in 4 years should spend nearly a year reading a single, easy-to-understand, and thin book. The gospel was followed by the history of religions and theology. In the last 2 years of his confinement, the prisoner read an extraordinary amount, quite indiscriminately. Now, he would apply himself to the natural sciences. Then he would demand Byron or Shakespeare. There were notes from him in which he asked for chemistry, a medical textbook, a novel, and some philosophical or theological treatise, all at the same time. His reading was like that of a man swimming in the sea among the wreckage of a ship, who, trying to save his life, greedily catches at one fragment after another. The old banker remembered all this and thought, tomorrow at 12 o'clock he regains his freedom. By our agreement, I must pay him $2 million. If I pay, all is lost. I shall be utterly ruined. 15 years ago, he had more millions than he could count, but now he was afraid to ask himself which he had more of, money or debts. Desperate gambling on the stock exchange, risky speculations, and a hot-headedness that he could not shake off even in old age had gradually led his business into decline. The fearless, self-confident, proud millionaire had turned into a second-rate banker, trembling at every rise and fall in the value of his stocks. "Cursed bet," the old man muttered, clutching his head in despair. "Why didn't this man die? He is only 40 now. He will take my last penny. He will marry, enjoy life, and play the market, while I, like a beggar, will look on with envy and hear the same phrase from him every day. I owe the happiness of my life to you. Let me help you." No, it is too much. The only salvation from bankruptcy and disgrace is the death of this man. The clock struck 3. The banker listened. Everyone in the house was asleep, and the only sound was the rustling of the chilled trees outside the windows. Trying not to make a sound, he took from his fireproof safe the key to the door that had not been opened for 15 years, put on his coat, and went out of the house. It was dark and cold in the garden. It was raining. A sharp, damp wind howled through the garden, giving the trees no rest. The banker strained his eyes, but could see neither the ground, nor the white statues, nor the lodge, nor the trees. Approaching the place where the lodge stood, he called the watchman twice. There was no answer. Evidently, the watchman had taken shelter from the weather and was now asleep somewhere in the kitchen or the greenhouse. "If I have the courage to carry out my intention," the old man thought, "suspicion will fall first of all on the watchman." In the darkness, he felt for the steps and the door and entered the hallway of the lodge. Then he groped his way into a small corridor and struck a match. There was not a soul there. There was someone's bedstead without bedding, and a cast-iron stove loomed dark in the corner. The seals on the door leading to the prisoner's room were intact. When the match went out, the old man, trembling with excitement, peered through the small window. A candle burned dimly in the prisoner's room. He was sitting at the table. Only his back, the hair on his head, and his hand were visible. Open books lay on the table, on 2 armchairs, and on the carpet near the table. 5 minutes passed, and the prisoner did not stir once. 15 years of confinement had taught him to sit motionless. The banker tapped on the window with his finger, but the prisoner did not respond with a single movement. Then the banker cautiously broke the seals from the door and put the key into the keyhole. The rusted lock gave a harsh groan, and the door creaked. The banker expected to hear a cry of surprise and footsteps at once, but 3 minutes passed, and it was as quiet as before behind the door. He made up his mind to enter the room. At the table, a man sat motionless, looking unlike an ordinary human being. He was a skeleton covered with skin, with long feminine curls and a shaggy beard. His complexion was yellow, with an earthy tint. His cheeks were sunken, his back was long and narrow, and the hand with which he supported his hairy head was so thin and frail that it was ghastly to look upon. His hair was already silvered with gray, and looking at his aged, exhausted face, no one would have believed that he was only 40 years old. He was asleep. In front of his bowed head, a sheet of paper lay on the table, with something written on it in fine handwriting. "Wretched man," thought the banker. "He is sleeping and probably dreaming of millions. And I only need to take this half-dead creature, throw him on the bed, smother him lightly with a pillow, and even the most conscientious medical exam will find no signs of a violent death. But first, let us read what he has written here." The banker took the sheet from the table and read the following. "Tomorrow at 12 o'clock noon, I regain my freedom and the right to associate with people. But before I leave this room and see the sun, I think it necessary to say a few words to you. With a clear conscience and before God, who sees me, I declare to you that I despise freedom and life and health and all that is called the blessings of the world in your books. For 15 years, I have diligently studied earthly life. It is true, I saw neither the earth nor the people, but in your books I drank fragrant wine, sang songs, hunted stags and wild boars in the forests, and loved women. Beauties as ethereal as clouds, created by the magic of your brilliant poets, visited me at night and whispered wonderful tales that made my head reel. In your books, I climbed the peaks of Elbrus and Mont Blanc, and from there I saw the sun rise in the morning and watched it flood the sky, the ocean, and the mountain peaks with crimson gold in the evening. I saw lightning flash above me, piercing the clouds. I saw green forests, fields, rivers, lakes, and cities. I heard the singing of sirens and the music of shepherds' pipes. I touched the wings of beautiful devils who flew to me to talk of God. In your books, I flung myself into bottomless abysses, performed miracles, murdered, burned cities, preached new religions, and conquered entire kingdoms. Your books have given me wisdom. All that the tireless human mind has created over the centuries is compressed into a small lump in my skull. I know that I am wiser than all of you, and I despise your books. I despise all the blessings of the world and all wisdom. Everything is worthless, fleeting, ghostly, and deceptive like a mirage. Though you may be proud, wise, and beautiful, death will wipe you from the face of the earth as though you were no more than mice in the floorboards. And your descendants, your history, and the immortality of your geniuses will either freeze or burn along with the terrestrial globe. You have lost your reason and are following the wrong path. You take lies for truth and ugliness for beauty. You would be amazed if, owing to some circumstance, frogs and lizards suddenly grew on apple and orange trees instead of fruit, or if roses began to smell like a sweating horse. So, I'm amazed at you, who have traded heaven for earth. I do not wish to understand you. To show you indeed my contempt for that by which you live, I waive the 2,000,000 of which I once dreamed as a paradise, and which I now despise. To deprive myself of the right to them, I shall leave this place 5 hours before the appointed time, and thus break the contract. After reading this, the banker laid the sheet on the table, kissed the strange man on the head, and began to weep as he left the lodge. Never at any other time, even after heavy losses on the stock exchange, had he felt such contempt for himself as he did now. Returning home, he lay in bed, but excitement and tears kept him awake for a long time. The next morning, the watchman ran to him, pale, and reported that they had seen the man who lived in the lodge climb through the window into the garden, go to the gate, and then disappear, together with his servants. The banker went at once to the lodge and confirmed the flight of his prisoner. To avoid unnecessary gossip, he took the sheet of renunciation from the table and, upon returning to his study, locked it in his fireproof safe.